Today on Supper with Sylvia, I'm joined by Maya-Camille Broussard, the founder of Justice of the Pies. She's a Chicago baker who's known for her bold, unexpected flavor combinations. Think lavender lemon, blue cheese, and pear. You might know her from Netflix's Bake Squad, where she found out live she had just been nominated for a James Beard Award.
Shut up! What?
What's happening?
The name Justice of the Pies honors her late father, Philip, who called himself the Pie Master. Her work is shaped by her own experience. Being partially deaf, she uses her platform to fight for equity and opportunity. So her mission is more than pies, it's her heart, toughness, and creativity that truly resonate. You're going to love this episode of Supper with Sylvia, where pie passion meets purpose. I have to say, I love your location. I love your pies. We have to start with the obvious question, and that is, how'd you get the name Justice of the Pies?
Well, I founded the bakery in memory of my late father, who was a criminal defense attorney. And so I created the bakery because he had a love for baking and eating pies. So I was trying to think of something that was clever, that was also alluded to the fact that he was an attorney and some sort of like legal term that I could play around with. And so that's how I developed the name Justice of the Pies.
And that's the name Justice of the Pies goes back so much more, I think, than just you talk about your father. As I've learned so much about you, you are really all about justice. You are about social justice. You are about equity. You have this cookbook that not only has recipes, but it has inspiring stories. And I'm curious, tell me, where does all of this come from? Why is that so important to you?
I think that oftentimes people focus, especially living in a capitalist society, people focus on just getting rich and enriching. I mean, it's cool to enrich your own life, but just getting rich just to have stuff. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that people who were very, very wealthy were also very unhappy, and likely because they had all this stuff, but they didn't have any purpose. And so any endeavor that I've always embarked on, I knew that it had to be purposeful. And in order for it to feel fulfilling and to feel truly enriched. And so when I was thinking about starting the bakery, I asked myself, how do I make this endeavor bigger than just myself? Even when I set out to write the cookbook, I didn't want to necessarily make it just about me, but I wanted to use the platform as an opportunity to highlight other people who use their work to positively impact the lives of others. So I think that naturally that creates good karma, whereas if you are putting good out there, then good comes back to you.
Wow. And I think you're living that life and you're experiencing that. So Justice of the Pie started in 2014, right?
Yes.
But you got this beautiful brick and mortar store, which you're in right now. And there's activity going on, everybody, because she's working, she's making her delicious product. And I want to just kind of give an example, because you're really known for what you do with flavor combinations. Mm-hmm. And I have a list here. I want to try them all. I've tried a few. Ginger, carrot, and asparagus quiche, strawberry basil key lime, which is one of the things you're really known for and it's one of my favorites, chocolate bacon bourbon pecan, lavender blueberry, blue cheese praline pie, deep dish chilaquiles quiche. Wow. How did you get to where you decided, you know what, I'm not just going to make pies or savory quiches. I'm going to make something that people haven't tried bringing together?
I mean, the art of baking and the art of especially baking pie is not anything new. So I think that it's always really important to stand out. And the reason why I want to stand out is because as a kid, I tried really hard to fit in. as a person living with a disability, I wanted nothing more than to be cool and to be a part of, the group of kids at school, and to really just sort of be relatable and to be able to assimilate myself to the cool people in, growing up. But as I got older, I realized the value of standing out. And one way that I really try to stand out is through my food.
Yeah.
And I am always looking to exercise my creativity with the flavor pairings and the different varieties of pies and cakes and treats that I make.
What's your favorite one?
Um, you know what? I love good classics. So I am a very much like a classical girl, but I try to make the classical dessert the best that I've ever had. So I actually love carrot cake, and my team does too. So
Mm.
we only do carrot cake in the spring and around like March and April, and we'll do it for a couple of months in the like leading into the summertime. But we worked for months just to create like the best, most moist, most spice filled carrot cake that we could. And so I just wanted to create an excellent product when it came to the carrot cake. And although I started Justice of the Pies in memory of my late father, I actually don't eat a lot of pie.
What?
My favorite thing to eat is pound cake.
Ooh, that looks
We
good.
have lemon pound cake that we can never ever take off the menu, even if we try. But I grew up eating pound cake, and I love the density of the cake and the buttery flavor, and so that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your bakery. It's so beautiful. I went there shortly after you opened, and I love how you have really focused on making it accessible for everybody. You, I understand, have 75% hearing loss. So that has impacted your life, I'm sure, in so many ways. And I'm sure that's why when you do what you do with everything today, you try to keep those who might need some, extra attention in mind. Tell me about why that's so important to you and why you did that with your first bakery.
Um, Growing up and even now, I experience a lot of disparity because of me living with a disability, whether it is going to the doctor's office and experiencing disparity because I'm a Black woman living with a disability. I actually experienced that fairly recently. And my mom is a physician. And so she was the one that was able to call it out. And when I described what happened to me, even when I was first diagnosed with having severe hearing loss, um, my mother was told to just accept that I was deaf and dumb because I was not speaking. And so when you see that people lack empathy and lack the ability to make our community accessible, um, it really propelled me to want to do the opposite. And
Yeah.
so when I moved into the space, or when I purchased this space, I told my architect, look, we have to walk through the space and figure out how can we make it as accessible as possible. This building that Justice of the Pies is housed in was built in 1956, and it's a beautiful mid-century modern style building, but um, it was not very accommodating for people living with disabilities. So one of the first things that we did was we reached out to the alderman and asked them for help with the sidewalks because the sidewalks were really uneven. It was a tripping hazard.
Hmm.
So we were able to get that done. We demoed our entranceway, the walkway to the building, and created a wheelchair ramp, which is really going above and beyond because there are so many places in the city of Chicago and beyond that do not have wheelchair accessible entrances. And then when you come in, we have a countertop that is the standard height, which is 34 inches, but then we also have countertops that are wheelchair height that includes 32 inches. And then we have some seating, but we also provided seating for children and for little people, people in the little person's community. And so we really wanted to go above and beyond. You know, even in our restroom, you have hand guard rails that every restaurant or retail facility must have. But we also added a stool underneath the sink so that someone could step up to the sink. We also have hooks at two different levels, a regular standard level and then a lower level so you can hang up your coat. So we just really and still continue to always look around the space around us to say, okay, how can we make this more accessible?
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful facility. It's you've just done such a great job, and that atmosphere combined with the amazing product that you sell, it's just all encompassing. You can walk in there, you can feel it, you can taste it. Everything about it is so stimulating. I read somewhere that you said that your hearing loss makes you a superhero. Tell me about that.
So whenever you lose the ability in one sense, then all of that sensory information moves to another sense. Think about Ray Charles being able to hear the sounds of a hummingbird, even though he had low vision. For me, I think that all of my sensory information has been shifted over to my sense of smell and my sense of taste, which is very much needed when you are a chef. And I am pretty much a super taster and I smell things before everybody else does. And so I think that that really helps me in being in tune with the flavors that I'm working with.
Yeah, wow, and that's what partially maybe why you're so good about putting things combinations together that people would never even think of. What's the craziest combination you've ever done?
Um, the blue cheese Pauline pear pie is up there. I also do a big and pig quiche, which has dried fits and manchego cheese, and then strips of bacon on top of the quiche custard. Sort of like a salty sweet combination that people really don't think of, but I really love pairing fruit with cheese in my pies and in my treats. I'm trying to think. I've made so much. You know, we really try to keep our menu interesting, and
Yeah.
we will change it seasonally. And so, oh, I did a miso honey chess pie
Ooh, that sounds
last
interesting.
spring. And again, that sort of saltiness with the sweetness. I like a really good balance of saltiness, and sweetness. I don't like when something is too sweet
Uh-huh.
or has too much umami. So.
Now, you've done cooking classes where you're teaching people how to bake, but you also do these workshops for children. I know you're about giving back. That's very important to you, and I understand. You know, food insecurity is something you also want to focus on. So, there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about that when we speak about trying to make sure everybody has that equity. The first thing I want to ask you about is when you built your bakery on purpose, you did it in an area that you felt like needed something like this. You could have come downtown. You could have come to another area. Why was it so important to be in Avalon Park where you are?
Well, the first thing is this is my neighborhood. You know, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I live on the south side of Chicago. And I wanted to be an early adopter to a neighborhood that I could see was going to be experiencing a change in the future, especially with the Obama Library being built right off of Stony Island, and we're located right off of Stony Island. But you know, this is the neighborhood. Actually, the building that I purchased, that Justice of the Pies is in, is my mom's childhood dentist office.
I
So this
love it.
is a neighborhood that I know very well and that I know deserves to have an establishment like mine. We are completely surrounded by fast food establishments. This is considered to be a blighted corridor that does not see a lot of private investment. And so I really wanted to come into, you know, I am the type of person that I always root for the underdog. You know, even when I'm watching a sports event, I'm always rooting for the underdog because I know what it feels like to be the underdog. And this neighborhood might be considered some as the underdog of many neighborhoods in Chicago. The city of Chicago might be considered an underdog
Yeah.
because you have so many politicians that spout negative views and misinformation about the city of Chicago and about the South Side and West Side of Chicago. So it was important for me to be a part of um, many entrepreneurs and enterprising people who come in and make the neighborhood what it is.
Mhm. And you're also big on trying to teach young people about nutrition and feeding themselves and that does that stem from experiences you had? Did you experience hunger yourself as a young girl? Tell me about that.
So I didn't necessarily experience hunger per se. My dad did. I experienced the residual effects of that generational trauma that comes from hunger. So there were times where my dad would eat all of my food, or the fridge was not fully stocked, and I only knew that something was off because my parents were divorced, and my mom's eating dinner and lunch at my mom's house looked completely different than eating meals at my dad's house. So I knew what it meant to have three nutritional meals per day. And I didn't necessarily have that at my dad's house. But what I saw moreover was how my dad's relationship with food was not necessarily a positive one. And yes, he loved to bake pies and quiches, but he also had a traumatic experience growing up lacking food, not just my father, but his sisters as well. And I could see how those behaviors uh, influenced myself and my cousins about our food choices or how we view food, um, and how we have a relationship with um, just food in general, you know. So um, when I was thinking about how Justice of the Pies can make an impact, I knew that fighting food insecurity was an easy way. It was a no brainer because it was something that I had experienced, and I could see how, from a generational standpoint, how it affected my family.
Mhm. So what do you want to teach the children in the underserved communities? What do you want to give to them to maybe spare them some of the things that, that trauma that your dad experienced and what effect it ended up having on you? What's your goal with that?
So since 2007, we activated a workshop called the I Need Love Workshop that teaches kids who reside in lower income communities that are affected by food apartheid and food insecurities. And we teach them basic kitchen skills. So I am, little me, I'm unable to end world hunger, but what I can do is take the skill set and the knowledge that I have to teach children how to be self sufficient in the kitchen. I had a moment when my dad left me at home alone, and I was in the fourth grade, and he was at the courthouse, and he was not back at the hour that he said that he would be back, and we didn't have any groceries in the fridge. We had stuff in the freezer, but nothing that was ready to eat. And he came home maybe 4 to 5 hours later than when he had promised to come home. And I was really hungry. And I was furious with him for leaving me there with nothing to eat. But if I had the wherewithal and if I was self sufficient in the kitchen, I might have been able to take in some of the frozen foods that were in the freezer and prepared it. And actually, it may not have been amazing,
Yeah.
but it would have been something that would have filled me until he got home. And I realized that in some communities, you have children whose parents have two jobs, or the parents has to work late, and they're not able to always be at home to create a full meal. Maybe there's leftovers, maybe there's not. But if I can at least help children who are at the age where they're becoming more independent, if I could teach them to be self-sufficient in the kitchen, meaning have basic kitchen skills to be able to prepare something for themselves, then we're halfway there in terms of the battle against food insecurity.
And we'll be right back. Hey, foodie friends, if Supper with Sylvia feeds your soul like it feeds ours, show us some love. Subscribe, like, leave a kind review, and share it with someone who loves a good story and a good meal. Thanks for joining Supper with Sylvia. It's the love of food that brings us together, but it's the stories behind each bite that brings this to life. So, what would you say the thing you are most proud of that you've been able to do because of your current position now?
That's really funny. I never really stopped to reflect on that because I'm always in go mode and I'm always trying to, I'm never like happy with where I am. Uh, I don't think like, oh, I've done this, I've done that. You know, I'm very hard on myself. So it's always about what I haven't done or what more can I do. But I'm proud to be in this space. I'm proud to have built out this bakery. Um, it was a very uphill battle and climb to get here. I'm proud to have published a cookbook and to have received notable recognition for the book by many different publications. I'm proud to have been named Pastry Chef of the Year by Esquire magazine in
Yeah.
2023. And to have been nominated for a James Beard Awards as a finalist in 2022
Yeah,
for Outstanding Baker.
that's
So
very
those are some,
exciting.
monumental milestones and moments that I'm proud of, but I'm always thinking of how I can do better.
Well, that's why you're so good at what you do, because you always think there's another level I can get to. Let's talk about Bake Squad, because a lot of people know you from Bake Squad. You were on multiple seasons. What's that like? That has to be so nerve wracking.
It is very intense. It's very high energy. It's very, very long days. But it was a fun experience. We did have 2 seasons. And I think that when I was on the show, or I not think that, I know that when I was on the show and I was speak with the person who had the event that they needed baked goods for, my my goal was to always elicit an emotional reaction and to make the bake as personal as possible. I really wanted the person to walk away feeling like I listened to them and their story, and that I encapsulated the feeling that they shared when they came onto the show.
Wow. Would you do it again and again?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
People always ask if there would be another season, and I don't have the answers for that.
Yeah. Well, I know that you enjoyed it, and we were so proud you represented us so well. I think it really kind of helped put your name out there even more, not just locally, but across the country, right? You must have had
Yeah,
a lot of people reaching out.
yeah, we have a lot of visitors from places like Brazil, and we've had people from Japan and
Wow.
Australia, that have come to the bakery because they saw me on the Bake Squad show.
So, as a journalist, I always had somebody I looked up to. And, growing up, I used to watch Barbara Walters. You remember Barbara Walters, famous
Yes.
journalist? Okay. She is notorious for a lot of interviews. In one interview, she asked the person, if you were a tree, what tree would you be? So, in the Barbara Walters vein, I want to ask you, if you were a pie, what pie would you be and why?
I will probably be a key lime pie because I consider myself to be silky smooth. I'm very reserved.
Ooh,
I'm bright. Like I have personality, but I'm smooth and not rigid. And you know, people always are kind of surprised when they find out how reserved I am and how there are people who have said, "Oh, you're so quiet." And it's like I don't always have to talk, but when I do, I can bring personality. But I also need to recharge my social battery and retreat. So when I think of key lime pie, I think of its brightness, the little spots of personality that I can have, but I also think of its silkiness and its smoothness. Like I just literally go with the flow.
Oh, that's a great answer. I love that. That is so perfect to describe you. Okay, what kind of pie would I be? You know me.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question. I'm going to say that you would be
Maybe I'm more like
you would
cake.
be a sweet potato pie
Oh,
because
sweet potato.
you're comforting, but also you're a classic. You've been around, you've been in the game forever, and everybody loves sweet potato pie.
Oh,
Everybody knows you, and people love sweet potato pie across different cultures. It's not
oh,
just a Southern thing, but I think of sweet potato pie being the classic pie that, everyone always thinks of apple pie being the classic pie. I think that is sweet potato because it's truly, um, for me, the soulful American pie. You have a little bit of soul. It's a classic. It's really hard to mess up. It's dependable, and you know that nobody can say no to sweet
I
potato
love it.
pie.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to tell everybody I have the ultimate compliment. Maya-Camille Broussard called me a sweet potato pie. What more could you want? So I know we've been talking pies and sweets, but I always love to ask people, where is your favorite go-to place in Chicago if you want comfort food, or something that makes you feel good? You know it's going to be great. When you want that kind of meal, where do you like to go, Maya?
So I'm also in Hyde Park. I grew up in Hyde Park, and I live very close to Hyde Park. And I love neighborhood spots. And one neighborhood spot that is always just super consistent and very, literally when I walk in, they treat me like family. It's called Azione Bistro, and it's Italian, but I literally would just go have a salad with a side of fries, which is, by the way, my favorite meal. Salad with a
Salad
side
and
of fries.
fries.
So, yeah, Azione Bistro is just a really comforting, consistent, warm, and enjoyable place to be. And again, it's a neighborhood bar. Not a neighborhood bar, but it's a neighborhood restaurant
Right.
that is just very reliable.
I always love to ask people about that because I want to give, a shout out to all the other places that maybe those of us who live in Chicago have never heard of. And I haven't heard of that. So thank you for sharing.
Of
Hopefully,
course.
give them a shout out and get more people out there to see them too. Okay, let's talk about what are your plans for the future? What's happening?
So here's the thing. People have asked me that, and I always tell other people that I talk to never share your plans. You don't know whose energy, can touch your ideas or how people feel about it. I always work in silence. So, yeah, do I have some things I'm working on? Yeah, but do I
Yay.
share? I never share it to the absolute last moment. And I wish more people would do that because I feel like people overshare and then it never comes to fruition.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, I'm going to write a book," or I'm writing a book." Okay, but just write the book. Don't tell people you're writing the book, um, because then you look up 10 years later and they're still writing the same book that they've been talking about 10 years prior. Just write the book, and then when the book is about to come out, then you announce your pub date. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry, but that's my final answer.
That's
I don't share
okay.
my plans.
I actually love that. That's really good advice too. I think that people could pay attention to, but I also know there's something going on, so I can't wait to see what that something is.
Lastly, I want people to understand that I think there's this misconception that when you work in pastry or it's baking, is rainbows and ponies, and it's it's such a frilly and um, magical carnival experience. There are people who say, "Oh, I want to come and bake with you," and it's like, no, this is backbreaking labor. This is serious work, and so I know that culinary oftentimes gets a lot of respect, and by culinary, I mean savory chef. But I implore people to also respect those of us who are doing baked goods because it's just as hard and laborious and rewarding.
Yeah, and that's why I so appreciate you joining me this morning. I want to tell everybody, follow Maya's social media. I love her on Instagram. She's a fashion girl. She's a baker. She's funny. It's just a pleasure to follow your Instagram account. And also to consider you a friend. We've gotten to know each other over the years, and I really admire everything you do. So
likewise.
Thank you for joining me. This podcast is produced by Jane Stevens, audio engineering and original music by Donnie Cutting, social media and promotions, Magali Blaisdell.